Okay, wonderful. So, first question, what inspired you to become involved with this movie?
Well, firstly, it had to do with martial arts and whatnot, and there seemed to be a great cast attached, and I guess it was just another opportunity for me to jump in and put my acting and my martial arts together. So, and the fact one championships was involved too, so there were a lot of key factors that came together to let's just say create a nice little storm.
That's awesome. How did you prep for this role?
Um, Physically, I'm always I'm always ready physically. Sounds a little bit egotistical, doesn't it? But no, look, I'm always training martial arts. I own a really large martial arts school in Australia. I'm always training. There's never a week off or time off. It's part of my life. It's part of who I am. A lot of the preparation as an actor, let's say, it wasn't too far removed. You know, a few moons ago, I was fighting. So I knew what that entailed, but I was a very more reserved, more respectful, more traditional type where I think Xavier Grau, he was a little bit more of a outward extrovert, but there was a lot of layers to him, a lot of like deep-seated stuff that was going on inside him. So it was an opportunity to explore a different type of fighter, and obviously, you know, from my years of experience, I was able to look at different fighters and see how they'd react to press conferences and understand how they would react in certain situations in terms of the negotiations for fighters. And I was able to look at that and adopt that for the character. So that was a little more preparation in terms of the character side of who Xavier was, as opposed to the physical side. Because as I said, physical side, I'm always training, I'm always ready. So that's a very easy adaptation, let's say.
That's awesome. So, seeing as you had sort of that like physical background, and I guess you worked on your acting, were there any like difficult scenes to film for either?
No, no. Difficult, yeah, in terms of the endurance and the physicality, because we just shot day after day. I think in the underground fight, that was a night shoot. So, obviously your body clock is a little bit out of whack and you're up all night trying to do the physical stuff and sweating and take after take after take after take. Um, so that was quite difficult, but luckily enough, in the underground fight, my son actually doubled the actor there, so I got to play with my son and go back and forth pretty hardcore with him. So some of those shots in that fight were pretty good because we were really laying into each other, which we both enjoyed. And then obviously when we got to the main fight with Daniel in Thailand. That was rough, and Daniel, unfortunately, towards the end, he sustained an injury, not at my hands. It was from his own team picking him up. I'm sure he would have talked about in different press interviews that he's done. But yeah, look, that was pretty hard too because it was day after day. And look, in a real fight, you jump in, you got five 3 minute rounds, or three 5 minute rounds, or five minute rounds if it's a championship fight. 25 minutes or 15 minutes or 9 minutes and you're done, right? This, you're going full speed, full power, obviously pulling your punches and at times just punching across it, but it's non-stop. It goes for 10 hours and you're going. So I guess that's where most of the difficulty lies.
That sounds really fun though, getting the chance to work with family. That's
Yeah,
awesome. So
yeah.
I
Jay
guess
did a
just
great job.
aside from that, then how is it working with the other cast members, seeing as you had such varying hours and were in different countries and all of that?
Oh, it was great. Look, the cast is great. I know Luke Hemsworth, and I know Daniel. We've worked together a number of times in the past, so it was an easy breeze. They're mates, so it was nice. It was easy. Met Russell Crowe for the first time, and he was great. And obviously Tyler, the director, fantastic. Producers, John and Mike were fantastic. So look, it was a really good experience.
That's great. Do you have any favorite scenes or memories on set?
Yeah, I really like working with Jay, my son, when we were doing the fight scene. Yeah, I mean he's not a little boy, he's in his 20s, but it's good to like, and we in training anyway, we pulverize each other. So that was a lot of fun. It was also a lot of fun working with Daniel. Daniel was stepped up to the plate with only a couple of years of martial arts training. But he really came in and for someone who was an actor primarily before he started training a little bit of martial arts, he never took a step back. He came in and really gave it everything he's got. He didn't back off at all. So that's a testament to his commitment to the character.
How did your son get involved with the movie?
Well, I did all the fight choreography for the movie,
Hmm.
so all the fights, the major fights, and whatnot. So, and that's a form of creation. So at my gym here in Australia, the cast and some of the crew came down, and the director obviously, and myself and our core team, which is Jalen and Jimmy Foster, my son and my nephew, and myself and Nick Harding. We come together and we created the fights, So creating those fights in the gym and having, Jimmy J and Nick all with me and creating, and then Daniel stepping in and creating there, and the other actor for the underground scene creating there and teaching them the fight scenes, training them up. That's how the family got involved, and that it's essentially it's our fight stunt team, which we just specialize in the martial arts. So it was great having them around, and you can see the finished product. And I think just, coming together and, as I said, having the whole family involved in it, which is our stunt team, and working on those fights and training up the actors to get those fights happening. That I should have said that was one of the best experiences.
That's really cool then. Obviously you're a fan of MMA, UFC, it's a part of your life, but how did you really get involved with it?
With martial arts, oh,
Hmm.
my mum, when I was 6 years old, she started me in some karate classes, and then from then it just slowly progressed. I mean, I had my first kickboxing fight when I was 12 years old, and and then introduced into Muay Thai. I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the year 2000 when the highest rank in Australia, there was only a few purple belts at the time. We didn't even have a black belt stuck in Australia teaching. So, I had a great instructor who's still my instructor today for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Anthony Perosh. So I just through the years I've always been so deeply ingrained in the martial arts since I was 6 years old and trained across so many different various styles, and then living in the United States for 11 years and training and teaching at the Hollywood Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai Academy. I guess I've rubbed shoulders with everyone from world champions to UFC fighters to one fighters to everyone. So it's been a huge part of my life. I've had quite a few actually, professional fighters and UFC fighters. They come to me and seek me out for help with their kicking technique. They really wanted to adopt and improve their kicking predominantly. So that's an area I specialize in, along with everything else. But yeah, so I've been involved in it for my whole life, really.
That's awesome. I'm sure this is the hard question for you, but do you have a favorite fighter?
Do I have a favorite fighter? Yeah, my daughter and my nephew and my son. We just had an amazing
Oh,
weekend. Yeah, we had an amazing weekend of fights. This weekend, a couple of weekends ago, Jimmy, my nephew, is a professional fighter too. He just absolutely dominated in his fight. So look, there, Jimmy's a professional, and my daughter and my son are up and coming. So I've got to be honest, they're my favorites.
oh, that's great. And I guess final question is, what are you hoping audiences will take away from this film?
I would really like them to look at the choreography and really appreciate the work and the execution, because it's not just about the choreography, it's the level of execution that it's done with. And I'd also like to see an insight into the fighter's mindset. Far too often, I feel, you've got all these fighters, MMA fighters, doesn't matter what league, whether it's one, whether it's UFC, um, that they put so much heart and so much soul, and it costs them mentally, physically. It's such an arduous task getting up every day to fight, and just seeing and the struggles that, whether it's a champion, whether it's someone on, on their road up, it's hard mentally as it is physically. And hopefully, it gives a little bit of an insight into the fighter's world and the fighter's mindset, and to understand, for people to understand that they're real human beings. They love, they hate, they cry, they laugh, and they go through so much chasing their dream of being the world's greatest fighter. And far too often we see fans just, oh, he's crap. Oh, he's this. And all these internet warriors disrespecting fighters. Where if they could just for a moment step back and have a look at the journey and the arduous task and the mental impact and the physical impact that it takes for fighters, whether they're champions or whether they're just on the journey to try to become a champion, that it costs them. And if people can just look at this film and have a little bit of an insight of what it truly is, maybe they can afford them a little more respect and not so quick to just dismiss their fighting prowess if they lose, or judge them, or just understand that they're humans and they work so bloody hard, and they should have a lot more respect. So I hope that they can look at this film and see that. And art has always been the at the forefront of changing things and changing mindsets. So maybe it can look at the people who are so dismissive and more often than not a little rude about fighters, and maybe it would initiate or enable them or help them to see that they should give a little bit more respect to fighters.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I feel like especially with such a physical sport, people just kind of tend to jump to conclusions and assume that it all goes boils down to like physique and things like that, but it's so much more than that. So,
No,
thank you.
absolutely not. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
okay,
much more than that.
yeah. I'm gonna end this recording.